Hi everyone! While I was originally planning to write a long how-to guide explaining each of the features included in the iView web app, I realized that a video would allow me to get into much greater detail and, hopefully, answer any questions you might have about how to most effectively use this tool. Let's jump right in them, shall we? This is the default view, what users will see whenever they load the web page. You can zoom in and out using the plus and minus buttons located along the left-hand side of the screen, and can refine the view by clicking on and dragging the screen. You can also navigate to a specific site or address by using the search bar at the top of the screen, providing either an address or the name of any particular protected natural area included in the iView database. If you prefer, you can also limit the search to either physical addresses or protected sites. To quickly return to the statewide extent, simply click on the Home button. For those using this app in the field with a smartphone or a tablet that has location services activated, you can tell the app to zoom to your current location by pressing the Locator button. My hope is that this feature will facilitate on-the-ground work by enabling users to quickly and easily determine the boundaries of various protected properties or related areas. It's important to note that this feature won't do anything in a desktop or laptop environment such as the one I'm recording this video on, since your laptop probably isn't GPS enabled. One last location-based feature, and then I promise we'll move on. Notice that the latitude and longitude of wherever you have your cursor placed is always displayed in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, albeit in the form of decimal degrees. I included this because I've been told that grant applications, particularly for federal programs, often request the latitude and longitude of project sites, while I know from personal experience that INPC personnel often have needed such information to facilitate the installation of nature preserve boundary markers. By clicking on the icon immediately to the left of the coordinates, like so, a user can also select a specific point, the coordinates of which will then be displayed until the button is depressed a second time. Okay, in this next section, let's look at some specific sites. When reviewing an individual property, or even looking more broadly at a larger area, you'll probably have use for a variety of different backgrounds. While the default base map is a high-level topographic image, there are 12 different base maps available that can be accessed by opening the base map gallery. These range from streets to topographic maps to aerial photographs. As you can see, the resolution on many of these changes as you change the scale at which you're viewing the image. If you want to overlay your map with a more regional view, either for personal elucidation or as part of a map that you plan to print or digitize, click on the I button located in the top right of the screen. You'll notice the base map of the regional pop-up changes in tandem with your selection of the background for your main map. Click the I button a second time to turn the pop-up map back off. Now, the iView app contains a multitude of data layers, but its primary purpose is to provide online access to the Protected Natural Areas database, containing over 10,000 individual protected sites ranging in size from the hundreds of thousands of acres of the Shawnee National Forest to conservation easements less than a tenth of an acre in size. The database is divided into 4 classes of data: land owned under easement or managed by the public sector, excepting municipal lands; the private sector, the aforementioned municipal properties, which are in their own class; and land dedicated or registered with the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission. To view details of any particular property, simply click on it to learn who owns, manages, or has an easement over the site, its name, what type of protection it enjoys, and a variety of other data points. If 2 sites overlap, both will be selected, and you can view the information about each in turn by using the forward and backward arrows at the top of the pop-up window. This is a good opportunity to draw your attention to the Recorded Document field. With the exception of NRCS-held easements, almost all easements and Illinois nature preserves in the database are fully documented. The recorded document field provides the document number with which each easement or nature preserve was recorded with the local county recorder. If you wanted more information about one of these sites, for example, to learn the specific reserve rights or restrictions on an easement, you can use this number to request the easement or nature preserve document from the appropriate county recorder's office. Okay, now, learning details about existing sites is great, but if you're using this app, chances are that at some point you're going to want to calculate distances or acreages of various features. Maybe you want to figure out how far it is from one site to another, or get a rough estimate of the size of a potential land acquisition. For both of these purposes, we turn to the measurement tool. This tool has three functions. The first enables you to calculate the area of a polygon you draw yourself. Simply select the Area option, then click on the screen at each vertex of the area that you're outlining. Once you're finished, you can change the units in which the result is displayed, going from, for example, square meters to acres. The next function, distance, operates in the exact same way, only now you're measuring linear distance rather than an area. The final function, location, is a bit different. This is an expanded version of the latitude and longitude feature that's found in the lower left hand of the screen that I discussed earlier. Just as with that feature, here you can click on a point to record its geographic coordinates. The difference is that the measurements are a good deal more accurate, extending out to the 6th decimal place rather than only the 3rd. In addition, you can change the mode of display from degrees to the more traditional, decimal degrees rather, to the more traditional degrees, minutes, and seconds. If you're still with me, well done. You truly do have the patience of a saint. As a reward, let's take a brief look at how to manage the data on the screen. As you may have noticed, the Holman Conservation Area in the northeast here has a different fill color than we're used to seeing. And it's also more opaque than the other nearby properties. Now, why is that? Well, it's because, as I briefly touched on earlier, this is a site where two protected properties overlap. In this case, the property has a conservation easement over it held by the Land Conservancy of McHenry County, while the underlying fee is owned by the City of Woodstock, which has opened the property to the public as Hennon Park. iView is set up so that you can turn off one or more of the four classes of data, each of which have been turned into individual map layers for the app. Again, those layers are public sector, except any municipal lands, private sector, municipal properties, and land dedicated or registered with the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission. By clicking on the Layer List button located at the bottom of the screen next to the Legend button that we used earlier, we can bring up the list of layers that have been or can be added to the map. Regular users of ArcGIS might also know this as the Table of Contents. Scrolling to the bottom, you'll see that all four of the protected land layers are currently turned on. If we turn off the Municipalities layer, the fill color immediately changes, since the app is no longer overlaying two different polygons on top of one another. Clicking on the site also now brings up only the single record, since the record for the municipal park is part of a layer that is now inactive. As you can see, the layer list contains a significant number of additional datasets that can be added to complement the protected lands layers. These include both environmental and political data, from the boundaries of the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Conservation Opportunity Areas to regional trails and bikeways in the northeast of the state, to Illinois Natural Areas Inventory sites, to state and federal electoral districts. The layer list also includes alternative ways to view the protected lands data, allowing you, for example, to separate out fee-owned, managed, and leased properties from conservation easements, outlining the easements and breaking out publicly owned properties by the level of government that owns or manages them, for example, federal, state, or county government. Let's take a look at how that might appear on a map. This is Hanover Bluff in the northwest corner of the state in Joe Daviess County. As you can see, the color scheme has changed somewhat. Federal lands are now in a dark green, state lands in orange. Private fee-owned lands are in a lighter green, while easements and nature preserves are outlined. Alright, now that you know how to use most of iView's features to make a map, I think it's time to show you how you can turn that into a printed and marked up document. You of course can simply take a screen grab and then paste that into another program, but iView enables you to create more detailed map products in a variety of formats. Click on the print icon to bring up a pop-up wherein you can set a lot of the key variables of your print-ready final deliverable. You can determine the title of the map, select its layout, going, for example, from portrait to landscape, and determine the format that you want the map created in. Clicking on the Advanced tab brings up another screen that allows you to go into more detail with respect to both the map's appearance and its quality. Once you have everything set, click the Print button. Contrary to what you might expect, this won't actually print anything. Instead, it creates an image that you can save or print as needed. Simply click on the icon and the file will open in a new window within your browser. Now this map includes both a title, as well as a legend, scale bar, and various other pieces of information. From here you can name and save the file, and now you've got it forever. Notice that you can create as many maps as you like. Once you've either saved them to your cloud or hard drive, or simply decide that you no longer need them, simply click on the Clear Prints button to delete the maps from iView itself. One quick caveat here. The map that's created when you click on the Print button is generated on the servers of the company that provide the framework upon which iView is built. Sometimes those servers are overwhelmed or just running slow. In those situations, you'll receive an error message rather than a clickable map. Just wait a few minutes and try again. The system usually sorts itself out pretty quickly. Now that we've completed a review of most of iView's main features, I wanted to briefly pause. If you'll primarily be using iView to make maps or learn more about various protected areas, feel free to turn this video off and then go start playing with the app. The next section is going to cover filtering data and using the tables, both of which are primarily used for analytical purposes. Okay, you've been warned. And we're back. As I explained a moment ago, let's now turn our attention to filtering. Filtering is a powerful tool that can be used to both quickly find any particular protected area or to retrieve data on specific groups of properties organized by organization or their geographic location. Let's take a look. Clicking on the Filter button opens a pop-up with two drop-down menus. The first allows you to select the type of organization that owns, manages, or has an easement over the property or properties that you're interested in. Once you select the type of organization, you can then refine your search by selecting an individual organization, or, alternatively, you can include all records that meet the organization type criteria. Here I've selected County, and as you can see, there are 1,049 individual sites that enjoy some form of protection that are owned, managed, or under easement with county government. I'm going to select the Lake County Forest Preserve District. Hitting the Apply button zooms the map to an extent that takes in all the properties that fit the filter criteria. In this case, that's most of Lake County, located in the northeast corner of the state. You can now select an individual site, and the app will zoom in to that specific parcel. So, for example, if we were interested in, say, the Hastings Lake Forest Preserve, scrolling down and clicking on the site's name will zoom the screen directly to that site. The filter feature has far more utility than simply serving as a tool to locate individual or groups of sites, though. By selecting the option to add the result of your query as an operational layer, your query is temporarily added to the layer list that we discussed earlier. Now, if you wish, you can turn off all of the other layers so that only your selection remains visible. This can be useful if you're making, for example, some type of bespoke map. Note that while the layers are already semi-transparent, You can further increase the level of transparency using the drop-down menu located to the right of the layer's name. So, what if you want to examine the data in more detail, see the information behind the shapes on the screen as it were? Well, you can do that too. From the same drop-down menu, select Open Attribute Table. In the table that opens up, click on Options and Export All to CSV. CSV, which is a type of file, stands for comma-separated value. But the key takeaway here is that Excel can open the file without any problem. You can now review the details of the properties you've selected and can run certain basic analyses, such as tabulating the area of all the selected features. In this case, we see that the Lake County Forest Preserve District owns, manages, or has under easement just over 30,400 acres. At this point, you might be thinking, that's nice, but what I'd really like to do is filter by a geographic area. If so, this next feature is for you. Let's return to the main filter screen after clearing out the query. Clicking on the option Use a Spatial Filter to limit the selected features provides you with 3 ways to limit the features that are included in your filtered result. The first is reasonably self-explanatory. By selecting the Only Features Intersecting the Current Map Area option, only those records which both match your search criteria and are visible on the screen will be included. The second option, Only Features Intersecting an Area Defined by the User, gives you even more control over the result. By using any of the 10 available drawing tools, you can precisely define the area that will be included in your filter. The final filtering option, Only Features Intersecting with Selected Feature From, is one that I developed specifically for conservation professionals whose work intersects with elected officials. Using the drop-down menu, select the political unit that you're interested in. For this example, I've chosen Illinois' U.S. congressional districts. I want to see those properties owned or under easement with the Lake County Forest Preserve District that fall within the boundaries of the 10th Congressional District. As before, I can choose to add the result of the query as a new layer within the application, and can then either further modify the map or export the results to an Excel-readable file. There are a few caveats that are worth mentioning here. First, notice that a site will be included in the query result even if only a portion of it lies within the selected boundary. This means that you can't simply add the area of every record in your table to determine the precise acreage of protected lands that the organization owns or manages within the selected boundary. More prominently, recall earlier in this video when 2 protected properties were found to overlap one another. Simply summing the acreage of all the protected sites in a specific area will often result in double or triple counting a property. For an extreme example of this phenomenon, observe this area in central Lake County. The property is owned by a local township. The same property is under an easement held by a not-for-profit land trust. A portion of the land is also under a second conservation easement held by the local county. Finally, the northern extent of the land is dedicated as an Illinois Nature Preserve buffer. So portions of the property would, if you were summing the land holdings of each organization, be double, triple, or even quadruple counted. If you're ever interested in obtaining a number for the total land area preserved in a certain area, I really recommend utilizing a GIS program to analyze the data in greater detail, or working with a GIS professional who I assure you can get an answer to your acreage question really quickly and quite easily. There's one final filtering feature that I'd like to briefly discuss. Clicking on the Attribute Table button opens the same table that you saw earlier when we were creating new layers and exporting the results to a spreadsheet. The table contains the information on each property included in the Protected Areas database, and can be manipulated using the self-explanatory tools located along the top of the pop-up. To filter the protected lands at a more granular level, begin by selecting the type of protected lands that you want to work with. In this case, I'm going to work with private sector properties. Next, click on Options, and then Filter. Select the first option, Add a Filter Expression. The pop-up that appears is the basic filtering tool incorporated into the ArcGIS online platform, which is what this app is built in. The drop-down menu on the left allows you to filter for any of almost a dozen fields. Here, I'm going to filter by type of ownership, that is to say, fee simple, easement, etc. I can either type in the value that I want to filter for, or, and I recommend this when you're dealing with a filter that's based on text and not a number, select from a drop-down menu by first clicking on the Unique radial button. I've selected Conservation Easements. As you can see, there are 374 conservation easements held by the private sector in Illinois. From here, you can export the tabular data to an Excel readable file or scroll through the list and zoom to any particular site. The filtering tool isn't limited to a single criteria. You can add as many as you like and filter for records that either meet any or all of your criteria. For example, here I'm going to filter for all conservation easements held by the 501c3 organization Parklands Foundation, of which there are 6. You can also filter by acreage, selecting only those properties that are larger or smaller than a set value. Here I'm selecting all NGO properties less than 5 acres in size, of which there are 225 in the state. Finally, if your criteria are mixed, such that you want to filter for records that, for example, meet one criteria and either of 2 additional criteria, you can use the Add Expression Set option to further refine your search. Here, I'm going to search for all properties protected by the Land Conservancy of McHenry County that are either owned fee simple, or are greater than 30 acres in size. As you can see, there are 37 sites that TLC either owns or that are under easement which meet these criteria. Okay, we're just about done. One last point of interest. A lot of times, you might not be content to simply export tabular information or to make your maps within the iView application. While the protected lands data is available as a web layer for ArcGIS users, if you want to download that database yourself so that you can use it offline, it's available in both geodatabase and KML formats from a link located immediately to the right of the search bar at the top of the screen. KML is the format used by Google Earth, while geodatabases are used by GIS software. Both Google Earth and GIS software offer their own capabilities that complement the iView application, and I encourage you to download the data and play around with it. Remember that new properties are protected quite often, so if you decide to use the data for offline use, make sure to return regularly to re-download the database prior to embarking on a new project, as there's a good chance that the protected area's landscape will have changed since you last retrieved the files. Well, that's it. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to contact us at iview@prairiestateconservation.org. Happy mapping, and thanks for watching.